Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to another tier list. I'm Black Templar, and let's talk about the next tier list, which is Continuous League 5 years with Draft. What is this all about, you may ask? A continuous league is basically a league that continues with the same teams that you don't change. Unlike the YouTuber league where we change our teams every season, this is a continuous league that keeps on going. Now, this is referring to leagues such as the US Bloodweiser League and the Orca League, or many other leagues like this. Now, what is this draft rule I'm referring to? Now, this is a new thing that's been brought in where the draft is at the end of every season, the team is sent away. Now, you do keep your side stuff like your medics, your fans, your rerolls, they're all kept. But as far as your players go, they're gone. But you are given 1.3 million to buy back players. However, they will be 20k plus on top of what they were at the end of the season. Then for the next season, it's 40, then 60, then 80, then 100, then they're gone. Or they keep on continue paying them. So this is the kind of thing we're talking about here. And we're looking at 5 seasons worth. We're not looking at 1, 2, 3, or 4. We're looking at 5 because that's usually the general number you would get. So, if that set in mind, let us start with the Amazons. Where would the Amazons be in 5 seasons with the draft? Well, let's get one thing out of the way right now. In 9 and 10, you're going to bring back your blitzers and probably a thrower for at least 3 seasons. That much is for guarantee. You're going to bring back those kind of players. And if you are frugal with spending your points, you could get away with a 4th season, but by the time you reach the 5th season, that's when you've got to make a decision. Do you want to keep certain players or go? So after that kind of run continuous, I mean, if we didn't have the draft, they would be weaker. But with the draft rules, which certain teams could struggle, and certain teams can get better, I would say they would be dropping down to B. Like I said before, more money gets added on. And don't forget, the 20k that was in from the beginning gets added on as well. So basically, you're looking at nearly close to like 250,000 for a player when they go through the 5 seasons. But I don't think the Amazons will not last that long. I think the Amazons, at best, will probably last to the 3rd season where they'll have to restart fully, which they'll drop down quite a bit if other teams have been frugal. Next is the Blackhawks. Now, the one good thing with the Blackhawks is their Troll and their Goblins, you could just easily replace them. The Blackhawks, that's where the problem lies. Even if you became very, very frugal, I'm afraid to say this about the Blackhawks, but you might get away with at least 2 or 3 star Blackhawks by season 3, while the rest of them will be weakened. Doesn't mean they're going to be weak, but it just means that you won't have like much to work with. And if you've got to have one like star gobble who's going to be the main ball handler / ball carrier, you're going to have to sacrifice a Blackhawk. And this is where it gets interesting, guys. After the 5 seasons and the draft rules, I would say the Orcs, the Blackhawks at least, will drop to here. They'll be underpowered. Because you remember, many other teams could do well in that bracket with a little bit of time. Whether or not they do that, that depends on them. Next, the Chaos Dwarfs. Right. The Chaos Dwarfs, let's be brutal honest here. You're not going to keep a freaking the Hobbs. You might keep one of the Bull Centaurs if they have got some decent skills on them or they've got a lot of XP. The Minotaur, not likely. You're not going to keep him. It's going to be the main blockers. And to be honest, the blockers, if you're very frugal, because this is the one good thing about the Chaos Dwarfs in particular, you might not want to spend anything for 3 seasons. They might say, well, they're good as they are, they don't have to spend for quite some time. So you could go 1 season without spending a single upgrade on them. But you will have to eventually, because more teams will get stronger and stronger and you're going to have to compete. I would say they will get a little stronger over time. By the 5th season, they'll probably have 2 or 3 star blockers. They have to be costly, but let's be honest. The fact that it's a star blocker with like block, tackle, and probably like block, tackle, mighty blow, and guard, and having 2 of them in your team off the bat makes them very good. And like I said, you've got 1.3 million to play with. So even if one of your Chaos Blitz like blockers is literally nearly 250k, you're still going to be able to use it. Same with the second one. Excuse me. So that's 500k, plus the rest you could spend easy, because you got to remember, you're not spending on rerolls, you're not spending on, other stuff. So it's purely on the players, and you could get away with spending like a third of that off the bat for 2 players. I mean, the rest you're going to have to spend to get the rest of the team, but a third of that? That's not a bad deal. I could say the same about the Blackhawks, but the Blackhawks are a bit expensive, and they will suffer a bit. Because like I said, you look at they're going to be at 300k per Blackhawk, and you can't afford. You need to buy the rest of the team, so that's why they went down a bit. But yeah, I'm going to go with an A rank because they will still be good, and they will still have the better end of the deal. Chaos Renegades. Now, I'm sorry to say this, but Chaos Renegades go straight to C. Why? It's the same thing again. You need to upgrade the skills on your team very quickly to do that to make the Chaos even viable and even competitive. And the worst thing is for Chaos Renegade teams, because of the animosity and plus the fact that the varies of players, you have to decide which players you're going to keep, which would mean that you're going to keep at least 1 star player, which will be either a ridiculously good kill piece or a good ball handler. Everyone else is probably just fodder, so that's why they're going to struggle a bit in later editions. Now, like I said, in the first 3 seasons they'll be decent. 4 and 5, that's when they'll start struggling, because 4 they'll either have to get rid of half their team or get rid of most of the team by then, and down to the like bare bone. And season 5 is just like, right, what have we got left to play with money wise? Because like I said, you've got to give certain players skills to make them viable. Chaos. Chaos, to me, now they're an odd duck. Because, for starters, the the bloody Beastmen. In my honest opinion with the Beastmen, and this is my pure honest opinion, I believe you're going to keep one of the ball handling Beastmen. You got to make them at least viable. 2, you're probably going to keep a Chaos Warrior, or 2, that's going to be strong. So 3 players out of the whole squad, and let's be honest, you're not going to keep a Minotaur unless somehow that Minotaur survived long enough to get a, a block skill. But I don't see that happening. And for those that have questioned, how many games am I referring to? Normally with these kind of seasons, they're usually 12 games. So 12 to 16, so take it as you will. But in any case with the Chaos, you'll be alright first season. Second season, I mean, you're going to be frugal in the first season. If you get away with it, you're great. Second season, you might start building skills. First season, you're going to have to build skills because by the time the 4th season arrives, half your team is very, very expensive. And I can see that happening with Chaos as well. They'll still be a good team, but the problem is, like I said, most of the best players will be gone. But if you do have a very good like ball handling player and a good couple of good like Chaos Warriors to hold the front line, then by probably season 5 they'll probably be in an okay position, but not great. So I'm going to go with B. Average. Dark Elves. Now this is where Dark Elves will struggle. And here's why. Because of the fact that they need several skills to make them compatible, i.e. dodge and block, for certain players, you're going to need a lot of kill pieces. Now, the blitzes themselves from the Dark Elves, I think like 100k each. So you think by the time the fifth season rolls around, they're going to be ludicrously expensive. And 9 and 10, you probably will have to give it them. The Witch Elf as well should be so expensive. The normal line elves would be decent, but you're going to be keeping mainly the main ball handler. The one who's going to be the main ball handler and probably one kill piece. But the rest of the team, however, will be reverted back to normal. And without a big guy, I'm going to be honest, the Dark Elves will struggle in this. So they're still a threat, but with other teams having some better star players that will be more kill piecey or better ball handling than they will be, I would say they're going down to B. This is the first time they've went below A, but B is pretty much a safe place for them. They're still going to be good, but they're just going to have to face the fact there's going to be better teams with better, stronger players. The Dwarfs. Now, this is an interesting conundrum for the Dwarfs. You remember when I said about the 1.3, million K? The Dwarves could be now. This could be a frugal move they could do. They could do a proper full team, but bring the Death Roller in. So basically, the first season they don't get a Death Roller, but the second season they do. Now, some might say, you could get a lot of money, keeping players, but like I said, it is very hard to do. And remember, if any deaths or injuries show up, you've got to sell them off. And remember, the more money you have, the higher your rating goes, so you can't afford to keep that for too long. Now, I'm going to be brutalized, guys. You're not going to keep the Blitzers. You're not going to keep the Slayers. You're not going to keep the Death Roller. You might keep a runner if it's decently skilled. The blockers, it's pretty much the same the Chaos Dwarfs. They will keep two good block pieces and a runner to make sure they've got someone who's going to be doing the ball handling work. Now, don't get me wrong, a near 300k dwarf is quite expensive, but if you're frugal with the dwarfs, which 9 out of 10 most people will be, they'll just take the cheap skills, which is like for them is Mighty Blow and God, which is 10k each. So that's 20k for that. On top of the price tag, which I think is like 95, or is it 70? I think it's something like that, like in the 70s or 80s or 90s. I can't remember precisely. They might get away with like being very frugal for a long time and reach, decent safe stat. So the dwarves can do it to a degree, but they, like I said before, the same problem arises. Remember, once the 20k hits on, that's slapped on them automatically. Then the 40k comes slapping on that. That turns them to 60. Then the 60k, then 100. So like I said, it will build up. So that's when you're going to see a lot of dwarves flying out. I would say for the dwarves, they're going to be in the A category. Just the same as the Chaos Dwarfs. They're both going to be okay, but they're going to have to be... You got to think who's going and who's staying. The Gobbles. Now, this is interesting about the Gobbles. The Gobbles will benefit a lot from the system. Now, you're never going to keep a Gobble. You're never going to keep the weapons. And you sure as hell ain't keeping any tricks. But you will probably keep the Trolls. Because, one, if the Trolls have gained a lot of good stats and they're like very powerful, like say they have Guard and Tackle, like Mighty Blow and Tackle, or I might able to say Guard and Block, or another skill in their roster, they could be a lethal combination, and it would make jobs for many front lines a living hell. And also the Gobbles, you don't have to spend for them, you don't have to pay for them. You just give it a lot and just replace them with new Gobbles. Pretty much cheap labor. And like I said, you could frugal with the Trolls by saying, right, I want to give them both guard, and then down the road, when I've got enough skills, I might give them, block. So the Trolls could be very good and powerful. And the Gobbles, yeah, they won't be great, but they're still going to have more options to play with because it'll give you more frugal routes. You can have more, room for inducements. So there is lots of benefits for the Goblins with this kind of format. But where do they end up, you may ask? Well, I would say, and this might shock a lot of people, but they are not going to go D. I was going to put them B, but like I said, that you're only looking at the trolls. So they are going to be C, but high C. I would say they're close to B. It's just that the rest of the gobbles will not measure up, but the trolls will be a nightmare. Halflings. Same again with the halflings. The treemen. You're probably going to keep the passer because you'll probably give him like sure hands and he's going to be the main runner of the ball. And the treemen, when you give the treemen both block and guard, it's like, right, that's two pains in the asses you're going to have to try and deal with. I mean, yes, they're going to be expensive, but let's be honest, the halflings are cheap as chips. You're not paying for more rerolls or anything. You're going to pay for just the halfling team and the two treemen and the rest and the ball carrier and the rest is going to be on, you know, other teams. Like other shenanigans. Like your inducements. But all in all, the halflings, like I said, like the gobbles, will go higher. High elves. Now the high elves, they're in a bad spot. Because the high elves are so expensive, they're already in the 80s to the hundreds already. They're going to run out quicker than most teams. And that's no joke. They will run out quicker. Now, 9 out of 10, you're going to keep a blitz piece. You're going to keep your two blitzers to do like ball, like scoring or blocking. Or maybe the passer if you've upgraded them. But yet again, the price. Remember, they're nearly. The blitzers themselves are like, I think they're 100 each. So by the time they're finished, they're nearly 300 each. I mean, you can still do it, but we got to remember what I said before. The cost will mount up on these guys. So that's where the problem lies for them. They're still going to be a decent team, but the cost factor will get them. So I'm putting them in B as average in this kind of format. Don't get me wrong, they're still going to be dangerous, still be good, but with the draft rules, they're going to start, you know, fluctuating quite a bit. I think they'll do well till season 3 when they're going to have to make choices who's going to have to go, who's going to have to stay. Also, I'm going to be brute honest here. I hope this system does happen for these leagues because it's a good way to shake up leagues because then you're forced to do stuff. Humans. Right, humans. Where should we put you? Now, the Jaguar traits will still make them good. Even their baseline players are still good. But here's the players you're not going to keep. The Ogre and the Lineman. These are two players you're never going to keep. And if I'm going to be brute honest, you're probably going to keep the two blitzers and a passer or a super good catcher and a passer. And the rest will probably just be going back to their normal stats. Which is all well and good, but here's the problem. Like I said, cost will come to effect, but as well as like dropping a lot of the other teams will still have some very good players on their roster. Like I said about the dwarves, they could have like these god medieval pieces that could just tear through armor. Same with them, they'll have some good god pieces. You're gonna have to be very cautious how you like make your players because unfortunately humans they're gonna have to get their players leveled up very early to make them even compatible. So unfortunately for the humans, they're C. They will be underpowered by that point because many other teams have kept some good players on their roster. I mean, don't get me wrong, they'll have some good players as well, but most of the team will be a bit under, utilized and under strength to a degree. Because you got to remember, you're paying like 300k, nearly 300k per player you want to keep. And 9 out of 10, you want to keep at least 3 if you can, but sometimes you couldn't. Imperial Nobility. Now, this is where they start dropping, and they're going to go down to here. And the reason being is because they've got great stat skills automatically, it's going to make them, at least quickly repairable. However, like the humans, they're going to have to choose very carefully who they're going to keep. And like the humans, you're going to have to upgrade them very quickly early on. And to be honest, that's where, the Imperial Nobility is going to struggle a bit because If you've got to get rid of a lot of your good players that have been skilled up and tooled up for like a few couple of seasons, and then by season 4 you have to get rid of certain players, and you have to choose who you want to keep, that's going to hurt your team a bit. But if you're looking at players you don't want to keep, like, the ones with Fend, you don't really care. They're not going to be too much bother. They're cheap as chips. But it's looking at like your blitzers, your throwers, and your ogre. They're the ones you're going to look at if you want to keep or not. And that's what's going to hurt them a little bit. But all in all, they'll still be fine. I mean, they are like upper B tier, close to A. They're pretty good, but that change will hurt them a bit. Khemri. Now Khemri's an interesting duck because one, the normal boneheads, you don't care about them. They're gonna go in prodigious fashion. You don't care. The Tomb Guardian, however, the blitzers and the thrower, that's a different story. The thrower, yes, you're going to have to keep him because one, it's a thrower, he's a main ball handler, and I wouldn't be surprised if you chose to give him a agility skill so he could pick up the ball easier. However, as many of you may not know, a stat increase is nearly 80k, so that's a lot to put into one player. But if you give him block and a stat increase, that's 90k you're putting on top, plus all the increased bonus. It'll still be worth to have him because he's going to be the main ball runner and handler. Blitzras, if you've got any good Blitzra kill pieces, then I would suggest keeping them. If not, they can still do good as normal Blitzras, but they will be a bit underpowered. The Tomb Guardian. Now, this is where the problem lies with the Tomb Guardians. You're not going to be keeping all 4 of them. Not the most powerful ones. You might keep 2, but you got to remember the Tomb Guardians are already over the 100k mark. And by the time everything goes through, they're nearly 300k plus any skill they have. And 9 out of 10, you're going to give them, Mighty Blow and Guard. You might not give them block, or you might, depends if you want them to be protected. But you're not going to keep all of them. You probably keep 2 of them, and the other 2 will have to just run with it. So for the Khemri, they drop down to C. They would be in B, but like I said, you're going to be a little bit underpowered to some of the other teams. That's the way it goes. Lizardmen. Now, Lizardmen are in a unique place. You could be frugal. You can go with 2 ways with this. You can either spend most of your points on the Skinks, take them like very good ball handlers and good like dodgers, and you could easily keep all 4 Skinks plus the Chameleon Skink with ease. You could easily keep those guys because they're not that expensive. They're like 70k each, I think, 80k. And by the time you get to season 5, which they'll be nearly close to 300 or 250, you really don't have to do much skill work with these guys. Only give them like block or sidestep or sure feet, whatever you want to give them, you go that route. Or you could go the Sorai route, which is basically you keep 3 Sorai that are like block, dodge, mighty blow, and there you go. That's 3 very powerful members on your line, and the rest of the Lizardmen will benefit from them because if you put, like, say, let's say you put a Sorai with those skills in the middle of like a couple of other Sorai, that means they're going to be very hard to shift, hard to beat up. So I could see the Lizardmen benefiting, but it depends how you want to do it. So Lizardmen are going to go A because they've got better options, and you could go one way or the other. Even if you don't put any money towards the Skinks are cheap. They can be easily quickly replaced, and they already got good skills. So I would say Lizardmen's got more upside than most of the other teams. Next, Necromantic. This is where Necromantic, unfortunately, they will struggle. Now, the Zombos, you don't care. They're cheap fodder. However, the werewolves, the ghosts, and the ghouls, and also the flesh golems. Now, this is where things could get a bit messy and a bit hard to choose from. You could keep a couple of ghouls because, they've already got block, dodge, and probably another skill to make them decent ball handlers. You could keep the werewolves because they have got, you know, they might have block, dodge, and probably tackle. So they're good blitz pieces. You could keep the ghosts because they are like physical presence. They can set up plays. You could keep the flesh golems, but sadly you can't keep them all. You're gonna have to choose who's going and who's staying. And with the zombies being, non-skill factor here, this is gonna make them quite underpowered. I put them in the C category. They're gonna be underpowered, but they're gonna be decent to some degree. But very, very underpowered. And, you know, a little bit underwhelming. You're gonna have to think hard with these guys how you want to do it. They could still be good, but with the rest of the team pretty much taking a hit when you've only got two good star players, and if your star players are like ghouls or werewolves, that could be problematic. Norse. Right, Norse. You could unfortunately Norse they have very bad luck, and because of the fact that they're weak armored and block, and you have to put in a lot of skills very early on to make them half decent. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you keep the throwers, the berserkers, the runners, you could get away with it. But you're not gonna keep the lineman. You're not gonna keep the Yeti, and you're certainly not gonna keep the Wolfrin. Those are free players you're not gonna keep most likely because you know their cost and they tend to die in prestigious fashion. And the Yeti, he's just a big guy you can quickly replace. So with Norse, in my view, they're going to be in the C category as well, underpowered. They're still going to be a decent team, but with any other teams that have better like replacements, they're going to have a little bit of a harder time. Nurgle. Nurgle. Where do I fit you guys? Because yet again, Nurgle needs to get their stats up quick to make them even half decent. And by the time this fifth season comes around, there's a lot of the players already gone. Now, we can all agree you're not going to keep the Rotters. That's guaranteed. You're even not going to keep the Beast of Nurgle because he's just a big guy you can easily work with. However, this is where the problem lies. The Warriors and the Pestigors. You're going to keep one Pestigor as your main ball handler. That's pretty much guaranteed. And the main ball handler Pestigor is going to have, extra arms and block. That's pretty much guaranteed. But as far as, and also the Chaos Warriors, 9 to 10, you're going to keep a couple of those kill pieces. Which is still a good thing, don't get me wrong, but with the rest of the team a bit under strength to a degree. But because of the Nurgle's powers and abilities, and plus the fact as well, you've got a good Pestigor already good with the ball, and you have good like chaotic kill pieces, I'm going to put them in the B category. Because after the fifth season, I mean, you got to remember, guys, in the fifth season, a lot of the teams have reset it, and they might not have kept anyone for the front line. And if you've got a strong front line to practically demolish and have your rest of your team take the back lines, they can do a lot of damage. Now, ogres. Ogres, ogres, ogres. Now, these buggers are going to cost a fortune. But there is a but to this. They're actually going to be stronger. And here's why. The Snarlings, you don't care. You don't care if they die. You don't care if you brought them back. They can be quickly replaced. But the Ogres, however, if you're smart and frugal, and you don't level them up to, like, say, I don't know, season 3, with them giving, like, you can give them all blocks, which is a secondary skill to these guys. Or you can give them, like, oh god, make them a horrific line out. And the one thing also about the ogres is that you could just buy them back. I mean, let's be honest, right? By season 5, You could literally, if you want to, discard 2 ogres, and you could buy 4 ogres, and the rest is just Snarlings, and there you go. You've just brought back half your team, and each ogre is going to cost you nearly, what, 300k or 350 per end of the season. So you're looking at roughly, like, you're paying for literally a lot for these guys. But to be honest, you can easily, even if you got free, that's still 3 powerful ogres you're going to have for a couple of seasons before, they have to go at the end of season 5. But after the, like, near the 6th season, but they're going to be absolutely a nightmare to deal with. And this will shock a lot of people, but that will put them in the B category. That's right. I'm putting the ogres in B because by the time they reach that point, they've got 3 powerful ogre players that, 1, you're not going to shift, 2, they're going to be deadly, and 3, you don't really care about the halflings. They're there to die. And your new ogres that are going to come in later on during the season, you can buff them up. You can build them up to be the next big things when they're about to retire. So there is lots of pluses for them. So they've got a lot more pluses on their side. Orcs. 9 out of 10 guys, you're going to keep the thrower and a couple of blitzers. But let's be brutal here. You're not going to keep the troll. Biggins, if you've got a good one, maybe, but 9 out of 10, you're going to keep the thrower and the blitzers, pretty much. You're not going to keep the linemen. You're not going to keep the goblins. So they'll have some good blitz pieces, but you're going to keep the thrower regardless because the thrower is your main ball handler. I mean, you could get rid of the thrower for all your blitzers and use a new thrower to become the next ball handler and build him up from there. It's really how you want to deal with that. So with the orcs, I'm putting them in B. They'll still be strong, but you'll have to be very cautious of them. Overworld Alliance. Sorry guys, D. Why? Remember what I said before about, the treatment? That'll be the only strong player you're likely to keep. And like I said before, the thrower is pretty much dog crap. The halflings are going to be good. The dwarves, you're going to need to have a lot of work with those guys. And they're just not going to be functional for a long time. Even with the treeman being there, and don't get me wrong, the treeman would be a ferocious piece, but that's one player. The rest of the team, if you got to build the team up quickly to make them decent. And as I said before, their passer is not as good as the human one. And the humans are underpowered because, like I said, most of their players will not have any skills or any way to get around certain problems. So I'm sorry guys, but the Underworld, it goes in the D category. Pro Elves. Now Pro Elves, same problem as all the other elves, but the one benefit they have is many of their elves are cheaper. Now you're going to keep the blitzers, you're going to keep the thrower, and you're more likely going to keep the catcher. Those are 4 players you're going to keep. And let's be honest, you're likely going to drop 1 player, which 9 out of 10, it's going to be the catcher. You're going to keep the thrower for obvious reasons. You're going to keep the blitzers because they all will be very nasty little pieces. So with them guys, they're going to go here. I know the rest of the team sucks, but let's be honest, you're pretty much not going to care. They're there to get hurt, essentially. But that's where the Pro Elves are going to go. Skaven. Now this is where Skaven are going to be interesting. And we're going to be brute here, honest guys. You're not going to keep the Rat Ogre. You're not going to keep the Skaven, like, lineman. You're probably not going to keep the blitz pieces. But you will probably keep the gutter runners or the throwers, depending on what you've made your team. And plus the fact as well, a ludicrously good gutter runner who's been like has block, sure feet, and stand for sure feet and sprint, is a worthwhile piece because he's going to get the ball, he's going to rush down the field and score. He's going to be hard to pin down and break down. So you're going to get a lot of early wins with the Skaven, and also you're going to have some decent chances because most of the teams, like I said, will be resetting, and half of them might not be able to keep their tackle pieces. So the Skaven will go to A. That's right, they will be stronger because of the gutter runners and of the thrower. If you don't have the thrower and you have the money to keep one of your better blitzers, you're going to do that. So they are more likely to do well for a good portion of the season with those fast buggers. But however, like I said, at the end, but they might lose them eventually when they get some good players. But 9 out of 10, they're going to cause freaking mischief. Snotlings. Now, Snotlings is an interesting group. You're going to keep the trolls and the pump wagons. There's no doubt about that because they're going to be your main keepers. And the rest of the Snotlings are just so ridiculously cheap. You can just, you know, don't care. You can go right. I'll keep these 4 players. They're going to cost me 300 a pop. So that's nearly like the 2 trolls and I think the 1 pump wagon. You could just keep. It's still going to make out a good line. And the rest of the Snotlings are just going to make the bill, and then you can get still a lot of inducements. But are they dog shit? No. They're going up to C. Because they can be more useful, and with them having 3 or 4 great players on their front line, plus all the inducement players coming in, this could make them a nasty little bunch to deal with. But like I said, the Snotlings are pretty much weak as, crap. But you're not really going to care about them. Essentially. Undead. The undead, well, let's be honest, you're going to have to keep the ghoul, bright, or mummies. You're not going to keep the zombos. You're not going to keep the skellies. Now, as far as the mummies go, if the mummies have got a couple of skills, which 9 10 they will, they'll have guard and mighty blow. Or do they come mighty blow right away? I think they come mighty blow right away, I think. I can't remember because it's been a while since I've faced mummies. But if I'm going to be very, very honest with these guys, I would put them in the B category. Because 9 10 you're going to keep the rights and the ghouls and the mummies. Or you might keep 2 mummies and a ghoul and 2 ghouls or 2 rights, depending on what you want to do. But they've got more chance to have like decent players around them. And the zombies, you don't really care about them. They're going to die anyway. So I know a lot of people say, well, you put Necromantic down. But like I said, Necromantic needs to get their skills up quickly. While the Undead really don't need to. They don't. They can get away with a long term without buying skills. And plus the fact they can get rid of a lot of players and not feel the strain. While Necromantic, however, like I said, they had like 6 players they can't keep. They're going to have to get rid of half of them. And that could feel the strain for them. Next, Underworld. Now, let's be honest. You're not going to keep the Gobbles. You're not going to keep most of the Skaven. Well, you might keep the Blitz. You might keep the Blood, like the Gutter Runner and the Storm Vermin and the Thrower. But the rest of the team, you're not going to keep. You might keep a Troll if the Troll has high enough, like skills, like he's got a few good mutations on his back. But the rest of the things, you're not going to keep. You're going to send to die. But because of the other teams around them that might still have some decent players to them, I'm putting them in the C category. Then they're just under B tier, but they're just not strong enough. Vampires. Right, let's get this out the way. You're not going to keep a Thrall. The Thralls are going to go. No matter what. Each season you're going to get rid of them and get new Thralls. The Vampires, however, well, that's a different story. As you all know, vampires are very expensive. And I'm going to be honest, you're going to keep probably 2 vampires. One is your main, and they're both going to be both either great ball handlers or great kill pieces. That's what you're going to be using them for. The rest, you're not going to be keeping many. I mean, you might keep 1 more vampire if you can frugal it, but that's pushing it. I would say the best, you might keep 3 good vampires and the rest are Thralls, and you get more vampires to take those 3 vampires' places once they're time for them to retire. So on that note, they're going to go up to B. Yes, I know people say, well, but animal savagery, yes, that's a pain. But let's be honest, you really don't really care about the Thralls. The Thralls are there to die. But because of those three players who are going to be ridiculously good, they're going to have block, dodge, and probably a mighty blow. And their strength 4 and agility 4, they're going to be nightmarish players to deal with. And considering you might give one of them leap just to get away from places, so they're still going to be good. What else? Like the High Elves, the cost is going to hurt them the most. Now, let's be honest, you're not going to keep any of the linemen. The War Dancer, Treeman, the Catchers, and the Throwers, they're your main players. Now, if we be brute honest here, guys, you're probably going to ditch the Catcher and probably keep, the War Dancers, because they're the jack of all trades. They've got leap and all that. 9 10, you'll probably give them, they've already got block, dodge, and leap. I would probably give them tackle and mighty blow, or tackle and nerves of steel, to make them very hard to deal with. However, they are very costly. So you might be ending up getting rid of the Treeman and the Catcher, but you might be able to keep some very good pieces. However, the rest of the team of it will suffer for this because of the fact that they're not skilled, and by the time they even get near the skilled level, they've already back to square one. So they are going to be in C. And that is it, folks. That is it for this video. What do you think? Are you surprised there was no S's among this lot? Are you surprised that certain teams went lower than they should have been? Are you surprised certain team went higher? What do you think? If you like the videos, please like, share, and subscribe. Ring the dinner bell. And I'll see you in the next Blood Bowl tier list. We'll be talking about tournaments. How good are they in a tournament setting? I'll catch you later.